Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Attack on Titan anime review. This one's going to be for Season 4, Episode 12. And yeah, again, I am anime only with Attack on Titan, for anyone wondering, but let's get into this. Started out pretty slow as an episode, but then ended up actually having some pretty major things happen. So of course the big action, I suppose, piece of this episode is the big explosion that ends up killing Premier Zachary and some soldiers. Nearly gets Armin and Mikasa, but of course they are fine. Just quick interesting note on that scene would be that, Mikasa diving to save Armin when Armin is the Titan shifter who's kind of like quote unquote indestructible, but speaks to Mikasa's reflexes that she was able to get them both out of the way, but still interesting. So that happens. So the leader of Parody basically is killed by what is ultimately revealed to be the Jaegerists, the people who support Eren and have lost trust in the military, the leadership of Parody Island. And yeah, we get a full-on faction split within Parody, which is very interesting with how the episode ends on the sort of cliffhanger that, oh, Pieck is right here. She's doing some, undercover work herself, obviously suggesting a Marley counterattack is coming, and we're going to get the response to the attack that, of course, Eren committed just a few episodes ago. So everything seems set up really interestingly here in that Parody kind of had it in the bag here. They really damaged Marley quite heavily. But now they've sort of exploded apart. And they've lost, in terms of the leadership, the official leadership of the island, they have really lost control of a lot of their key elements and haven't handled it all that well. Which is why Pixis actually stepping up to become the new leader, I guess. It's why his actions are actually so important. And I thought that was probably the best scene of the episode, was his explanation for why, basically, we shouldn't just go after them for revenge. That is not the logical thing to do in this situation. Unfortunately, to keep things going, and so their deaths are not in vain, we have to just accept that as a response to why, us basically causing this to happen. That the reason they disagree with the government and the leaders and so on is because, have we been all that great recently? No, and that is proven with the Hanji scene from last episode and so on. The people are losing trust in the military. We saw that in the papers in this episode, and obviously a lot of the other, especially the newer recruit soldiers, have also lost faith in the military. So their response is to get rid of that leader. Now, obviously, terrorist actions, of course, you can't really agree with that. But Pixis acknowledges that if we just basically declared war on the Jaegerists, we're at civil war on the island. And he has to know a Marleyan attack is coming in. So he just, for the fate of Parody, basically, he has to make the decision. We have to put this behind us. And try to actually negotiate with them going forward. And you can see everyone else doesn't quite agree with it, but they ultimately accept the logic of the situation, that this is what's going to have to happen. So what felt like a complete implosion of Parody Island from a sort of power perspective now feels like, okay, maybe we're back on, maybe we can come to some form of an agreement, because the one thing I suppose that they have that Eren doesn't have is the details of where Zeke actually is. But they're also suspicious of Yelena, because they're pretty sure at this point that Yelena has planned quite a few things, kind of subtly, that she hasn't told all the other Marleyan volunteers about, but stuff is planned through the restaurants and so on. And what do you know? A lot of characters seemingly are going to converge towards a restaurant, and we're going to get some sort of a big meeting. So that's going to be so interesting to see how that all plays out. I'm guessing this is the whole wine thing, the special wine. that they've been teasing from before that more relates to Zeke's arc. I'm guessing that's going to be revealed in the next episode, and we'll see what exactly the situation is here. That will probably put Eren and Zeke into contact with each other, because again, they highlighted for the last few episodes the importance of the rumbling, and to do that they need Eren and Zeke right now to actually like make that happen. That is important for Paradis on a political level, is to keep, you know, the option of the rumbling happening on the table, which only works with them because of the Historia pregnancy and what that has done to sort of plans to like maneuver the, you know, Beast Titan power around to have it someone who they can control a little bit more. So a lot of that like political detail is like really, really fascinating. It is being presented in a little bit of a sort of, you know, scattered fashion, I suppose. And you really have to have your brain switched on as you watch these episodes to fully get how it's all meant to sort of coincide together. Because again, a lot of the basis for sort of the characters stuff that's going on right now is in scenes that we haven't seen yet and may not see for quite a while. Mainly like that Zeke and Eren have talked, and that was obviously some sort of a major thing. Yelena has said stuff to Eren as well that has informed why he's doing what he's doing here. So I'm guessing they're holding a lot of that back for a major reveal of this is Eren's motivation at this point. But it still remains a big mystery in the series at this point, what the full details behind a lot of that stuff exactly is. Similarly, we continue to just add complexity to a lot of characters and so on. So, what's her name? Kiyomi, the kind of leader of the Azumabito clan, kind of has a bit of a back and forth with Mikasa. Mikasa does confront her about, you don't really care about me, you just care about the money, but I think she gets across her point relatively well, highlighting that no, she does actually care about Mikasa, because she sort of sees that, like, yes, the leaders at this point sort of have fallen, and we are more money grabbing and so on. But what, you know, but that's why they sort of want to protect Mikasa, because she sort of represents kind of what they were from before, and so they're going to do everything they can to keep her safe. And that seems to hit kind of Mikasa a little bit, that oh, she maybe slightly misjudged her on like one point, whereas there's actually a little bit more to her. But that's just you know, more depth on that one individual character. Again, it's hard to fully picture like how do they play a role in things in terms of like, will they have a military to support Paradis or not? Because obviously with Pieck being there at the end, the Marleyan attack is coming in, but how's this going to work with the Jaegerists separate from the military? In that, to Marley, they're not going to care that Paradis is separated. They'll see that as, I suppose, a good thing to a degree. But from the other point of view, the Jaegerists want to attack Marley. They want to take out Marley and get freedom for Eldia. It's the government, it's the military of Paradis that's sort of the issue, in that they want to do sort of worldwide politics and potentially negotiate, but also, you know, they want to do the typical thing of, you know, trying to, you know, get the best deal and stuff like that, you know, politicking. But they also acknowledge that they're not really that good at it yet, because they're not used to being on a world stage. And like I've talked about before, they're lacking in a lot of their kind of key elements, and that because they've effectively mishandled Eren and have now lost him to the Jaegerists, their main strength is that, of course, they still have a military. A lot of powerful soldiers, and the increased technology definitely helps. But the only Titan they have is Armin. Whereas Eren is, you know, 3 Titans in one, and has other soldiers as well. Now, you know, which is more powerful? It definitely feels like, okay, from a Titan point of view, Eren's probably the more powerful one. But from a soldier point of view, Paradis would still have the advantage. But they would both want to, if an attack comes in, fight against Marley. So they'd have to sort of join forces to a degree. I suppose the question is just the timing of when the attack actually comes in. How willing to negotiate is Eren going to be? And what will he sort of ask for to, do roughly what they want him to do? There's a lot of these questions, and then, if an attack does come in sort of the middle of the meeting, what way do we go with all of this? Because, Marley still have a bunch of Titans left, and I suppose this is where, if Eren gets to Zeke, that probably is the thing that solidifies that they have the complete advantage, because suddenly then they can activate the rumbling whenever they want, and they can use that as the sort of nuclear deterrent on the world. Sort of like, don't come near us or we'll basically destroy the world. But it does beg the question, like, they still want to go ahead with like the practice rumbling, and I don't really know what exactly that means, in that, like, the rumbling is basically freeing all of the wall Titans and allowing them to flatten the world. So the practice rumbling is what? Do we let like one wall worth of Titans? Do we get one wall Titan out to walk around? That's what's sort of unclear about that, and like it's kind of not particularly just. It's hard to really see, like, okay, you need to display that power to the rest of the world to show that the deterrent is real. But now it's so much more complicated because, the information about where Zeke is held by the government, but Eren and Zeke is kind of what they need to make it happen. Just a lot of depth going in, and I liked a lot. Like I said, a lot of the plot points coming together towards the end. Falco, Gabi, and the others arriving at the restaurant like they said they would, and I guess we're going to be getting back to what's going on with Zeke and Levi and the soldiers watching over him, and whatever's happened with the wine. So yeah, big stuff coming up. Other scenes. I suppose the opening scene was more of a fun scene. Armin goes to see Annie in the crystal again. Hitch is sort of watching over them and kind of accuses Armin of being a pervert because she's aware that Armin has a crush on Annie, which is kind of like, okay, that's interesting. To see where they go with that, and it was just fun to see that dynamic of like Armin is so, you would never associate that at all with his character, but Hitch knows she can get a reaction out of him by accusing him of like being something that like he really isn't. So that actually worked quite well. Beyond that, I suppose the episode did get across the idea of like the fundamental mistrust between the Jaegerists and the government is that the government feel that they're done with Eren and that they should switch Defending Titan to someone else. And the problem that I think most people watching the show have with that is that feels like a very Marley move, where you're just sort of protecting your assets for the sake of protecting your assets. It's not caring about the person that you basically have to kill to keep that in check. But equally, Eren isn't perhaps caring about people's lives anymore either, but he is taking a course of action very specifically, whereas the government's, I suppose, plan feels kind of not particularly clear outside of, manipulating situations to show that they're in the advantage, and, it's about which do you value more or less. And so it's this complicated thing as a viewer where unless you really are biased towards specific characters, it kind of feels like you're sort of 50% on the Jaegerist side, 50% on the government side, but then you also can maybe see some of the Marleyan perspective, but it's hard to get the biggest sense for sort of the position of the leadership of Marley, because the exact backstory still with regards to what exactly did Eldia do in the past that informs the whole Eldian Devils thing. Just how bad is that? Is it over-exaggerated or what? That's where we probably need the full history backstory to come out at some point to clarify, like, is anyone completely right in this or not? Like, is there any value actually behind that Marleyan way of thinking and how much they control the Eldians? And again, why do Eldians have the ability to turn into Titans, and is it possible to get rid of that ability? Because that would be the thing to solve the issue between different races across the world, above all else. So that's another important factor to keep in mind as well. Hanji, I suppose the episode really got across that she still continues to be in this very, very awkward and difficult position, as some of her new recruits are the ones who have left, and plotting is going on behind her back, and she doesn't exactly know what way to handle it, because the Survey Corps still have to ultimately report to the high-ups, and they can't be as free as they once were. So Hanji looks bad to the people and to the Jaegerists, and it's this just very complicated dynamic that's going on here. So yeah, after a few episodes of sort of political setup, establishing sides and so on, I think the next episode probably has to get into really clarifying some things, having some of these big meetings, and kind of determining where we're going next, because there's only 4 episodes left in the season, and obviously as of right now, we don't actually know, I think, how the rest of the manga is going to sort of get adapted. Season 4 part 2, I guess, like they did season 3, seems like the most obvious thing, but you'd think they'd almost announced that already, given how obvious it seems. My guess is that probably at the end of episode 16 of this season, we'll get that reveal like straight away, and that there'll be no delay or anything like that on it. It'll just be, I suppose, pretty much straight up announced. But again, we don't really know. I think there's 2 chapters of the manga left to come out, if I remember correctly, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. I suppose for anime-only people like myself, I suppose spoilers are going to be a little bit more difficult to try and avoid maybe over the next few weeks, as manga readers react to the ending of the entire series. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. But yeah, they're my thoughts on this episode 12 of season 4. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been my thoughts. That's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.